What is the single most powerful weapon in Empire Total War? It's not the thundering charge of cavalry or the blast of a 24-pounder cannon, it's the disciplined volley of a simple line infantry. Well, unless your line infantry is facing canister shot and you're within range, then they're just Swiss cheese. Welcome back to Scroll and Strategy, the first of a three-part series on land forces. In this episode, we're going to cover infantry, their stats, and each infantry unit available in Empire Total War. So fix bayonets, check your powder, and prepare to command the disciplined ranks that forged the empires of the 18th century. On a side note, before we kick it off, I'm not going to be covering any local units. These are things covering your Indian Irregulars and Indian Missile Cavalry.
Joseph, how many people did you kill?
In-game, the only playable factions with mob infantry are the Ottoman Empire and the Confederacy. Those units are then split 2 to 1, with the Ottoman Empire having 2 mob units and the Confederacy only having a single one. And even then, it's the worst of the 3. The Ottomans have a melee with a little better stats and ranged mobs with an accuracy of 25, but they only have 3 ammunition and morale. It's not much firepower and support as one might hope. In all, these are just filler units, the ones you need to turn to when the money's low and you really need to toss bodies at a problem.
No, he's got a point.
Melee infantry are going to include your pikemen, C-match janissaries, Skia warriors, and Hindu warriors. Let's start with the pikemen. Pikemen tend to have a point in the game during the opening stages of your campaign, but they tend to dull out as time goes on. There are various uses on the battlefield in early game. Pikes can be utilized as shock troops using mass to impact and puncture through the line, or rather be a defensive unit for cavalry. Overall, everyone in Europe has the same stat for pikemen, and the only adjustment is apparently Prussia having a cheaper one at a cost of 720 gold instead of 750 gold. Moving to the Middle East and the sick man of Europe, the C-match janissaries are made by the Ottoman Empire. They are a good melee unit in the start of the game, but lose out against firing drills and firepower as closing the gap to attack ranged units becomes more costly. They can shift to a flanking position and get around ranged units to provide a devastating melee attack, or turn them into a defensive unit where they can protect your walls of a fort. Moving into India, we have the Skia and Hindu warriors, part of the Confederacy's recruitable units. The Hindu warriors are the worst of the two. The difference is mainly with the increased stat in charge bonus, defense, and morale. But Skia warriors do lose a point in melee attack and cost 140 more gold to recruit and an additional 30 cost per turn to upkeep. And that wraps it for the pitchfork and sword wielding units, but continuing with units that lack military discipline, we shift towards the Irregulars.
Tomorrow I can be on time.
Irregulars are not soldiers, but rather civilians driven to take up arms against your nation's enemies. These units include the following: Azars, Bashi Bazouks, Bosnian Padaks, Haidut Irregulars, and Guerrillas. All of them have the ability to do things like guard, take buildings, hide in light shrub, long grass, and woodland. The best part is they can skirmish, allowing them to stay at a good range while engaging enemy units. Azars. These guys are bottom of the barrel ranged Irregulars. Next to Guerrillas, they have the worst reloading skill and the worst accuracy out of all of them, but that is what you get for the cheapest ranged Irregular with greater range than line infantry. Bashi Bazooks. I'm so sorry if I'm saying all these wrong. If the Azars are bottom of the barrel for ranged, these guys are just below them. For the Ottomans, it's an irregular melee infantry that is worse than your regular melee infantry. Their saving grace is that they're cheaper by almost 200 gold for recruitment and remains hidden while walking, meaning if you can position them well, they can conduct a rear charge on your enemy. The Bosnian Panduks. For Ottomans, this could basically be your line infantry. If you're going against European factions, you'll have the range to take on their line infantry. Oh, hold on. You give 20 ammunition too. Shitty. Actually, these can fucking take on line. Holy crap. 35. Hold on, wait. Their accuracy is 35. So, oh yeah, no, they could compete. They could compete. You get 20 more range. Your accuracy is just 5 below or equal. What's the reloading skill? Shit. Your reloading skill shit. No, well, equal Russia. You're Russia. Yeah, basically you're Russia with fucking 20 more range. Smoke them, dude. Smoke them if you got them. Note that you have to control Bosnia to be able to make this unit. The Haidut Irregulars. Now, I know I just said the Bosnians could almost be line, but if you have both Bosnia and Serbia, not only are you going to have a fun time because of Balkan things, but these Irregulars are even better to stack up against line infantry. You're going to get that 20 range advantage against line infantry, as well as a 5-point accuracy advantage. Your reloading skill, charge bonus, and defensive are lacking though. So as long as you can take your enemy out without being charged, you could dominate. Plus, they are cheaper in both recruitment and upkeep. So away from the Middle East and into Spain, we have guerrillas. Just a horrible reloading skill of 10 and a defense of 2. But you have a range of 90 and an accuracy of 45 and an ammunition of 20. You get 5 more ammunition. You are higher on the accuracy than any line infantry in the game, and, well, standard line infantry, and you outrange them as well. They can be useful, but they cannot be touched. These guys are like mages, they're glass cannons. They're great for having maybe 2 of them on the flanks of your army to do pot shots at line infantry, but once they're in a melee, they're going to be gone. And Spain also has another guerrillas unit, the Corso Tessereste. The pronunciations are rough. Just bear with me. We have a little bit more to go. They do still have the range. The accuracy is less. It's 35, and they have a 15 reloading skill. They're a little better at the defensive and melee. That's pretty much where your saving grace is going to be with those.
They're like jackals, but racist.
Moving on to skirmishers, you're more elite irregular infantry, or you could put them as almost light infantry. They have the range, the accuracy, and some reloading skill. The best part is only the cazadores in the list require technology. These units are made of those trained in the wilderness warfare and taught to survive in harsh conditions. They include the Courier de Bois, I am gonna get so butchered for this, the Rangers, Afghan Hillmen, Kurdish Hillmen, Armenian Archers, Serbian Hunters, Frontiersmen, and the Cazadores. Courier de Bois and Rangers. You're looking at French early light infantry and the Couriers, and for the Brits and Americans, you're getting the Rangers. Brits also get Rogers Rangers and Fraser's Rangers. Putting them up against standard light infantry, you have an advantage in melee, charge bonus, and defense, falling short in range by 5 points. Hell, they're even cheaper to recruit than light infantry. Depending on who you're at war with, you're pretty much going to outmatch their line infantry as well. When looking at the Rangers, you also have to take into consideration the Rogers Rangers and Fraser's Rangers, which, when put up against the standard Rangers, both Rogers and Fraser's stand out, with Rogers being the better of the 2 sets. Fraser's loses out in pretty much every stat. The only thing equal is going to be range, but you only get a single one of these units at a time, so use them properly. Afghan and Kurdish Hillmen. For those playing in the Middle East, you'll be getting Afghan and Kurdish Hillmen. They're almost the same unit and can be decently used against line and light infantry due to their range and accuracy advantage. But if you're planning to have your skirmishers be in melee combat, you're going to want to take the Kurdish Hillmen instead with their improved melee attack over the Afghan Hillmen. There's one thing to note, that to get the Kurdish unit, you will need to hold a region in central Middle East, either Mesopotamia or Syria. Armenian Archers. If you're playing the Ottomans, you should probably spend your money somewhere else, like the Afghan Hillmen. The range and reloading skill on this unit is worse and they cost more, but they do have an advantage at being able to play stakes and chevaucheur. As most Middle Eastern units, you have to control a region, and for these guys, it's Armenia. Serbian Hunters and Frontiersmen. I'm sure we can figure out who between Spain and Russia gets Serbian Hunters. These guys almost perfectly match the stats of your light infantry. You're missing 5 points in accuracy and 1 in morale. They even cost the same and will improve like most of these units as you get things like light infantry tactics and other technologies. Cazadores. Calzones. One more for Spain. These guys are classified as skirmishers, but require the machined rifling technology, so you won't see them until late game. But what you are getting is there are a range of 125 with an accuracy of 70 and a reloading skill of 35. Able to outshoot and reload most line infantry, they're just a bit cheaper than the Spanish line infantry as well. Light Infantry. A step up from your skirmishers and require at least one technology, that being the Light Infantry Doctrine, but others who fall into this category will need machined rifling and European Doctrine for those Ottoman players, and the Screw Breach for some. I am placing riflemen into this category as well, since they follow the same doctrine and unit size. They just have rifles instead of muskets, so they're just gonna go in here. Don't at me. The units included here are going to be Light Infantry, Chasseurs Britanniques, I have no idea, Ferguson Riflemen, Green Jackets, Nazim Credit Light Infantry, Nazim Credit Rifles, Riflemen, Tirailleurs, another French one I can't pronounce, the Freikorps, and the Prussian Jaegers. The Grenzers, the Jaegers, and the Windbush Jaegers. Light Infantry. These are your standard light infantry that a majority of European factions utilize. You have a range of 90, an accuracy of 55, and a reloading skill of 30. You're going to outperform in range when it comes to line infantry, but you also need to be wary that they can't do combat on a melee level. Chasseurs Britanniques, Britain's expatriate infantry. They have a bit of decreased stats when you pull it up against standard light infantry. They do lose out on 5 accuracy and 2 points in morale, but they do have a better reloading skill of 35. They have a build limit of 4, and you must be controlling the region of England. Nizami set at light infantry. Back to the Ottomans for a moment. Requiring the European doctrine technology, these guys are decent light infantry. Their only downfall is the drop in accuracy and reloading skill. A 10-point disadvantage in accuracy and a 5-point disadvantage compared to the standard light infantry. They do have a better defensive though with 2-point increase. The Freikorps, French faith, your Prussian light infantry. You get greater numbers and swap 5 points from accuracy into reloading skills, along with better melee, charge bonus, defense, and morale. With these increases comes an increased cost from 820 gold for standard light infantry to 1230 for the Freikorps. Moving to the Chasseurs, it's literally just renamed light infantry for the French. Ta-da! Riflemen. Your standard rifleman unit that some European factions get, they do require the machined rifling technology to recruit, but as most rifles, you're getting an insane range of 125 with an accuracy of 70. So they're going to be able to touch an enemy's light infantry prior to their ability to screen your units. There's not much more to talk about in reality, they're just your basic rifle infantry. Ferguson Riflemen, available only to the British, the Ferguson Riflemen are different than the standard riflemen due to the using the breech loading weapon and require the screw breech technology. Think of it as an old double barrel shotgun. Now, you only get a single unit of these riflemen, and in all honesty, their major benefit is that they're all around cheaper than a standard rifleman unit. I mean, we're talking a standard rifleman unit costs 960 for recruitment and 240 for upkeep. A Ferguson Rifleman is 840 for recruitment and 210 for upkeep. So you're saving 30 gold a turn for one unit. They also have a stronger defense but lack a charge bonus. And their melee is just, it's a 4. It's a 4. I mean, come on. The Bosnian Pan Ducks have a melee of 11. Come on, they're irregulars. Green Jackets. It's your boy Sharp. The reason for the Green Jackets was not to distinguish them from standard units, but rather to allow them the ability to hide in foliage. They do cost a bit more to recruit by 20 gold, I think. Yeah. It's 960 for standard rifleman unit, 980 for the Green Jackets. Upkeep is the same, but they do have a better defense. Other than that, they're pretty much standard regular riflemen. There's nothing really special about these guys. I mean, we're talking about a defense from 7 to 12, and your melee attack drops from 3 to 4. That's really the biggest change here, and that costs you 20 more gold for recruitment. The Nizami set at rifles. They're basically the Ottomans' answer to riflemen, and they are gonna smack. But they do require you to research European doctrine and machine rifling technologies, and they're going to cost more than your standard riflemen. Like I said, when you stack them up against standard riflemen, they hit hard. They match all the stats but have an improved melee attack, charge bonus, defense, and morale, so you're paying more for a better unit that can stack up against your European threats. I'm not going to say this in French, it's just a trioleur. These are just your French rifle infantry. It's the same stats, like, it's just renamed again, so no cost change or anything, so we're done here. Prussian Jaegers, your standard rifleman with a different name, same cost, same stat, but your biggest advantage here, and this is seriously a good advantage, 1 turn to train instead of the standard 2 turns, which if you're building an army under pressure, fantastic train. Like, that is just, mwah, it's money.
Fucking lobsters for money.
Grenzers. This is Austria's light infantry. Their starting one pretty much. It's kind of their comparison to standard light infantry. They do have this interesting double-barreled musket. It's an over-under style. It does allow them to shoot a little quicker. Jaegers. These are pretty much the carbon copy of your light infantry for everybody else. They're just called Jaegers. Stats are actually equal across the board, it looks like. Windbush Jaegers. Now, these guys are incredibly special when it comes to discussing light infantry because they don't use a musket or anything rifled. What they use is a wind rifle. It's a 20-round magazine that fires as quickly as the Jaeger can pull the trigger. The great thing about the Windbush Jaegers is that they provide you the ability to have what's called sniping inside your armies, where they can shoot within their hiding tall grass, however it is, and actually engage the enemy without being found by the enemy.
That's soldiering.
Moving on to the Line Infantry. They form square, they seize forts, and advance under fire. It's your one, it's your only Line Infantry. The bread and butter of your armies, armed with smoothbore muskets using volley and discipline to break enemy lines. These are the units you will probably mostly using to continue your conquest across the known world. These units include Line Infantry, Berkeley's Regiment, Regiment something in French, Royal Dukes Ponce Regiment, the 33rd Foot, the Hessian Line Infantry, the King's Royal Regiment of New York, the Grenadier Infantry, the Hindu Musketeers, the Skia Musketeers, the Israelis, Nizami Credit Infantry, Superior Line Infantry, Cossack Infantry, the Irish Brigade, the Scots, and the Swiss Infantry. It's our biggest one here. It's Line Infantry's it's a big boy. For Line Infantry, your musket-armed troops whose purpose is to utilize mass volleys to break an enemy, relying on discipline and effective rates of fire. These are standard military infantry you'll be utilizing in your conquest. They do change a bit per country. Most of these changes are in accuracy, reloading skill, melee, attack, defense, morale, and cost, so almost the entire thing. All other stats tend to stay the same, so your range does not adjust, but Prussian Line Infantry is more effective than a Russian due to the increased accuracy and reloading skill. So you do want to take some time and kind of figure that out. Bulkeley's Regiment. We start off with the special units, the French Bulkeley's Regiment. They're superior to Line Infantry in all but range, with 50 points in accuracy and 50 in reloading skill. They're a force to be reckoned with on the field. They do only have a build limit of 1, so you won't be making an army with them, but they're going to hold the line better than standard Line Infantry. I would be placing them in your weakest areas of your line or use them for flanking. Regiments of Rangers. Staying with the French for this one, these do have a build limit of 4. When put up against regular Line Infantry, they do have an equivalent accuracy, but the second worst reloading skill, only above the Russian Line Infantry. Their melee attack is lower, but they do have an equivalent defense. Basically a poor man's Line Infantry, and don't worry about the cost, it reflects that. The Royal DuPont's Regiment. For our last French regiment, we do have somewhat good stats. When comparing them to Line Infantry, they do gain a greater morale, their defense is equivalent, charge bonus is equivalent, melee is equivalent, ammo. You do get 5 more points in reloading skill, and your accuracy is the same, and your range is the same. They're just a little bit better than a standard, on average, Line Infantry. You do lose some stuff when, depending on who you're fighting. For instance, if you're facing the Prussians, you have 5 points less in reloading skill for this regiment. They do have a build limit of 1 and require the new model bayonet drill, as well as controlling the region of Alsace-Lorraine to be recruited by the French. The 33rd Foot. Shifting our focus to Britain, we have the 33rd Foot. They do not have a requirement in technology, but they do require you to hold the region of England. Comparing them to regular Line Infantry, they mostly are the same except for an increase in melee attack, defense, and morale. When placed up against British Line Infantry, they fall short in reloading skill and defense. They do cost 40 more gold to recruit as well, and you only get 1. Hessian Line Infantry. With no requirements to build, but they do have a build limit of 5. The Hessian Line Infantry are again a cheaper variant of your standard Line Infantry. Their stats are below the average Line Infantry stat in all spots except for range, where they're equal. So they're really good if you're going to need to fill a chunk of your army up and you want something better than just militia. King's Royal Regiment of New York. You only have a build limit of 1, and it requires you to have the region of Upper Canada. The Royal Regiment of New York stands against standard Line Infantry decently well. They have roughly the same stats and an increase in melee attack and morale. For an additional cost of 50 gold and recruitment in 10 gold, and you only get a build 1. Bargar Infantry, shifting away from Europe and heading into India and the Middle East, where we have the Bargar Infantry. They have an increase in defense by 2 when compared to their European counterparts, but other than that, they're pretty much equal footing in all other categories. Hindu Musketeers. Hindu Musketeers are good for pretty much just pumping up your numbers. These guys have the range, but the accuracy and reloading skill are lower than the previous 2. When stacking up against European line, they're ranking on the lower end of, with the morale being incredibly low at 5, where the average Euro Line Infantry has 7. They'll break quicker under pressure, but they could be used for flanking as well. So shoving them in your army is good, but they shouldn't be the core of your army. Israelis. Shifting from India toward the Ottoman Empire, we have our first Line Infantry unit, the Israelis. Against standard European Line Infantry, they do fall short in most stats. Again, we have a morale of 5. They are a cheaper unit to produce, being 200 gold cheaper in recruitment and an average of 60 gold cheaper in upkeep. These guys I would utilize like improved militia. and allowing them flanking maneuvers while a stronger line holds the enemy. Nizami Credit Infantry. These guys are your bread and butter pretty much for the Ottoman Empire. When stacked up against Euro line, they do sit in the mid-range level and will be good against the Skia Musketeers, and even with their lack of accuracy by 5 points. This does come at a hefty cost. They're 1,210 for recruitment and 300 for upkeep, making them more expensive than the standard Euro Line Infantry, but that's what you get for being the sick man of Europe. They also require the European doctrine to be done. Superior Line Infantry. Easy unit here, they're just better European Line Infantry. There are some instances where they're not above the Line Infantry. For example, Russian Line has a better melee, but lower morale. So in a one-on-one, you might be able to win it out due to morale, but it takes 2 turns to produce instead of a single turn, and you're only allowed 15 of these units. Where your increase is going to be at is in your accuracy and reloading skill. You're bumping from your 20s and 30s to a flat 45. Cossack Infantry. It's Russia's cheap line infantry. They do have a better reloading skill than the Russian infantry by 5, and you're kind of on par there as well with the reloading skill of 20 for the Cossacks. The accuracy of 30 is lower than standard line infantry, which is where you kind of get the cheaper price from. As well as their melee attack is kind of on par. Charge bonus is alright as well. Defense and morale you're also going to be lacking in. It's 6 and 5 respectively. The Irish Brigade. Shifting to the other side of Europe, we're going to look at the Irish Brigade out of Spain. Compared to standard line infantry, they do stand up decently and are middle of the road. Same accuracy as Russian and Austria, while having the reloading skill to match that all but the Prussians. They do have the lowest defense at 11, but so do other nations. They do have a build limit of 4 and cost a little bit cheaper than standard Spanish line infantry. The Scots. Moving away from Spain to those who fought for their independence for 80 years against Spain, the Dutch. The Scots have a build limit of 4 units and have the highest accuracy when comparing to standard line infantry. They also have a mid-level reloading skill, only being beaten out by Britain and Prussia. The real ability lies in their charge bonus, having higher than other line infantry at 14. Matching that with their higher defense and melee attack, Scots are great for that first volley with a charge and using them to flank around a rear unit. And for our last line infantry unit, Swiss Infantry. Still sticking with the spice mongers themselves, the Dutch have a cheaper version of superior line infantry in the form of Swiss Infantry. They don't match up exactly though. They do lose 5 points in reloading skill and a point in melee attack and charge bonus, resulting in a decrease of 200 gold in recruitment and 40 gold in upkeep, but you're still stuck with the 2 turns for training. As the Dutch, you can only field 6 of these units at a time.
It's a pipe bomb!
Grenadiers are one of my favorite specialty units. Along with their muskets, these guys get the increase in morale, charge, and defense. Then on top of it, you get to easily break morale of your enemies by throwing grenades at them. Having them frog leap your lines to toss grenades is a great time and requires a lot of micromanagement. Included in the Grenadiers is, well, Grenadiers, Hungarian Grenadiers, Hessian Grenadiers, the Royal Welsh Fusiliers, the Beylik Janissary Grenadiers, the Janissary Hand Mortar Bullock Guard Grenadiers, and the Hand Mortar Company. So let's kick it off with our base. Grenadiers. They do have a smaller unit size of 60, but they do tend to equal or outperform standard line infantry, especially with their special ability to toss grenades. Hungarian Grenadiers. Austria's special grenadier unit. You have to be holding on to the region of Hungary to be able to build them though. Putting them up against regular Grenadiers, you're seeing an increase in accuracy, reloading skill, and defense, while decreasing in pretty much everything else. Not horrible because it's only a point or 2 in loss. You are only allowed to recruit 10 of these guys though, but 10 is still a lot of Grenadiers. Hessian Grenadiers. Moving across the channel, we have Britain's specialty Grenadier unit. They do require you to have improved grenades. These guys in all are alright with their stats. For ranged attacks line up with standard Grenadiers, but fall short when it comes to the melee based skill. You are only allowed 1 of these guys on the field at a time. They're just a cheaper Grenadier version for British players. The Royal Welsh Fusiliers. These guys require the cadence marching, and again, we're only allowed a single one of these on the field at a time, and you have to be controlling England. A lot of requirements for these ones. But they do have a better reloading skill against standard Grenadiers, except for the Prussians. They have 5 more points in that category. The rest of their stats fall short by a point or 2. Beylik Janissary Grenadiers. Moving back toward the Middle East, we have the Ottoman Empire with our Beylik Janissaries. These guys stack up decently against regular Grenadiers, having a reduction in the melee focus skills, but they do keep up with their range and accuracy. With Russia being a prime adversary in the game, you will not want to put these guys against Russian Grenadiers. They outperform your Janissaries. Janissary hand mortars. Putting these guys up against Russian hand mortar companies, you are going to be at a loss by 5 points in accuracy and reloading skill. It's a slight loss, but you're still having the same range, so engagement will happen at the same time. But if you get into hand-to-hand combat with them, you'll be at a major loss since you are below a few points on melee attack and defense. But against Line Infantry and lower, you might have a chance at possibly using these guys as mobile artillery. Guard Grenadiers. Shifting outside of the Ottoman Empire and to a defender of Europe, Poland and Lithuania can create one single Guard Grenadier. Now, you can utilize this unit to dominate. Standard range against infantry and other grenadiers, but you have an accuracy and reloading skill of 50, putting it higher than other grenadier units, so you may only get one, but they're going to be so good at the range. Lastly, we have the Hand Mortar Company. Moving to Russia, these guys are a step up from the Janissary hand mortars that we mentioned earlier, but unlike the Ottomans, where you can have all you want, Russia can only build 6 of these guys, decent in defense and morale with accuracy equivalent of the Guard Grenadiers. Elite Infantry. Here, you're going to start to notice that it really gets limited on the production numbers of units, typically somewhere between 1 and 6. But these guys will be able to fire better, faster, and stay in the fight longer. Included in Elite Infantry are Guards, Republican Guards, Maison du Roi, Infanterie Petit Vieux, Infanterie Vieux, Royal Cossais, Swiss Guard, the Black Watch, Coldstream Guards, Beylik Janissary Musketeers, Cairo Janissaries, Simonovsky Foot Guard, Guards d'Infanteria, the Walloon Guards, the Life Guards of Foot, the Blue Guard, and the Holland Guard. It's a lot of guards. The Guard, Republican Guard, and Guardas d'Infanteria are the base unit for Elite Infantry. When compared to standard Line Infantry, you're looking at an increase in accuracy by 10 to 15 points, increasing your loading skill by 20 to 40 points, the drastic increase due to Russia having absolute trash reloading skill. The French get a single unit of Swiss Guard. You do have to have the Palace Bourbon constructed to recruit this unit though. Comparing to Guards, you do get an increased accuracy and reloading skill by 5 points, bringing them to 55 and 60 respectively. The rest of the stat tree is minor increases. They do come at a hefty price of 1,700 for recruitment and 420 per turn for upkeep. Coldstream Guards. Shifting over to Britain, once more you're only able to field a single unit of Coldstream Guards. When putting them against Swiss Guard, they really excel at the reloading skill and gaining an increase of 5 points. Everything else is about 2 points behind or equal. They do have the best reloading skills in Britain's roster, but their other skills are a tad lower than regular guards or the Black Watch. Over to Prussia, we have the Life Guards. These guys, by all means, are probably the best unit in the game. They do have a downside though with a lower accuracy, but that is made up with a superior reloading time as well as suffering from the same vulnerabilities as infantry. These guys can only be recruited as Prussia with an absolute monarchy or constitutional monarchy. Life Guards of Foot. These guys are basically just Sweden's Guard equivalent, but with an improved melee stat. You're going to get 3 additional points in a charge bonus and melee attack. Simonovsky Foot Guard. We're heading to the place that cannot view my enable video, Russia. Now these foot guards are something special, slightly worse than regular Russian Guard, but they make up for it through their superior melee capabilities. But due to that capability, they are more expensive to recruit and train, and you only get one of these guys. Walloon Guards. Shifting to the opposite side of Europe, Spain. Some fun history here though. This was a bodyguard unit that was originally raised in mostly Catholic Wallonia, now Belgium. In the game, it is the best guard unit for Spain, and you only get a single one of them, and you're required to have the Palacio Real de Madrid to make them. We have the Blue Guards, which are the best unit you can pretty much get as the Dutch. They have a high accuracy and a reloading skill of 55 and 60 respectively, matching that with a great charge bonus and defensive skill. The other elite guard unit for the Dutch is the Holland Guard. Now these are pretty much just the Dutch version of regular guard infantry, but they are marginally better in melee and charging. Just like regular guards, you can only recruit up to 6 of these guys. Maison du Roi. Shifting to the state that continues to fail every 24 hours, France. These guys are just the standard guard infantry. They're just French, dressed in white, so they surrender quicker. Infanterie Petit Vieux. Sticking with the failing state known as France, we have The infantry is something or other, only allowed 3 in play at one time, and they do outperform standard French line infantry, but they will be outclassed by the next one, infantry review. The great thing is that these guys can come out a bit earlier than superior counterparts. Speaking of those counterparts, we have probably the second best French troop out here is the infantry review. They do outperform not only standard line infantry, but also, don't worry, we aren't moving away from France just yet. The Royal Cossacks are, like most Scottish infantry in the game, excellent at melee portion of combat, but even more so, they have excellent accuracy and are pretty good reloading time, making them a formidable unit to utilize as well. The downside, you're only getting one of these. The Black Watch. Shifting over to Britain, we continue discussing Scottish units. Once more, great at the melee portion of battles and are better than regular line infantry, but the Black Watch are even superior in melee to regular guard infantry. But they are inferior in terms of ranged engagement, mainly with their reduction in reloading time skill by 15 points. The Beylik Janissary Musketeers are Ottoman's version of guard infantry. They do have various problems. They're not able to form square or utilize various firing drills. They can, however, outfire regular European line infantry in a ranged engagement. Now, these guys come out quite early and have no unit cap. Cairo Janissaries. They're pretty much the superior unit of the Beylik Janissaries. They still can't utilize things like fire by rank, but setting them up right in combat, they can outperform most line infantry. This is due to their increased loading skill and accuracy.
Yeah, boy.
And so, from the disciplined ranks of the line into the skilled skirmishers in the woods, that is our infantrymen, the true king of the 18th century battlefield. They may not have the glamour of a cavalry charge or the raw power of an artillery barrage, but they are the heart and soul of your army, the force that will ultimately win or lose your empire. But an army is more than just the heart. In the next episode, we'll look at the decisive arm, the hammer to the infantry's anvil. We'll break down every cavalry unit in the game, just like we did here. Thanks again for watching and visiting the channel. If you enjoyed this overview, please like and subscribe. I will be continuing the land overview next with cavalry and then cannon. After that, we'll be diving into the tactics of Empire Total War. And remember to log off once in a while, visit and talk to friends and family. Stay awesome and have a good one. I'll see you in the next video.